The worst Black Friday deaths ever, bro. Let's get into it. Let's.
Trampled to death. On November 28, 2008, thousands of shoppers gathered outside the Valley Stream Walmart on Long Island, New York. It was 5 o'clock a.m., still dark, with temperatures hovering just above freezing. Among the employees preparing for the day was Jedimitai Damour, a 34-year-old temporary worker who had been at the store for only 1 week. Damour was a large man, 6'5" and 270 pounds, which was likely why managers positioned him near the entrance. He had received no training in crowd control. The store was offering deep discounts on flat-screen televisions and other electronics that morning. Outside, the crowd had been growing since midnight, swelling to more than 2,000 people. As 5 o'clock a.m. approached, the mood changed.
Wait, what? 2,000?
Swelling to more than 2,000 people.
2,000 fucking people outside of a Walmart. A Walmart. That's wild, bro. Like, genuinely. Why would you all go to the same Walmart? Once I seen that there was like 200 people up in that bitch, I'm like, all right, I'm going to a different store. 2,000 people is insane.
As 5 o'clock a.m. approached, the mood changed. People at the back began pushing forward. The crowd pressed against the glass doors, which began to bow under the pressure. Damour stood on the other side, watching as the doors shuttered. Store managers had placed him there, believing his size would deter aggression. At precisely 5 o'clock a.m., the doors were unlocked. Within seconds, they bulged inward and shattered. The metal door frame bent and gave way. Damour was hit by the rushing mass and knocked backward. He fell to the hard tile floor as shoppers poured in. Witness statements later confirmed he tried to stand but couldn't regain his footing. The crowd did not slow. Shoppers stepped on his chest, legs, and arms. Some, focused on doorbusters, didn't notice him. Others saw but continued forward, unwilling to lose their place in the surge. Security cameras captured the scene from above, Damour's body disappearing under a wave of legs and feet. Store employees tried to reach him but were pushed back by the unstoppable flow of people. For 3 minutes and 40 seconds, Damour lay on the floor, being crushed by the weight of dozens of shoppers. His chest cavity compressed with each footfall. His ribs broke one by one. His lungs could not expand to draw breath. When security finally cleared a path, Damour was unconscious. Blood trickled from his nose and mouth. Emergency responders performed CPR, but the internal damage was catastrophic. At 6:23 a.m., while the store remained open and shoppers continued checking out, Jedimitai Damour was pronounced dead. Collapsed and stepped over.
Dude, like, that's crazy, because there's more cases of that shit happening, of, like, people dying because they got fucking trampled during Black Friday, bro. Like, that shit's crazy. Like, it's just some fucking discount deals, bro. Relax. It's not that deep. Like, shit.
On November 25, 2011, Walter Vance left his home in Logan County, West Virginia, to take advantage of Black Friday sales. The 61-year-old pharmacist had a history of heart problems, but felt well enough to join the midnight shopping rush. Target's doors in South Charleston had opened at 12:01 a.m., and by 12:15, the store was filled with hundreds of bargain hunters. Vance moved through the crowded aisles, a shopping list in his pocket. The store's temperature had risen several degrees from the mass of bodies. Security footage later showed Vance pausing in the housewares section, placing one hand on a shelf to steady himself. His other hand went to his chest. At 12:23 a.m., Vance's legs buckled. He collapsed face first onto the white tile floor. The fall was not gentle. His forehead struck the edge of a display, creating a small cut that began to bleed. He lay in aisle 7, partially blocking the path to discounted kitchen appliances. What happened next would shock the nation. Shoppers stepped around him. Some glanced down, then continued walking. Others stepped over his body, shopping bags in hand. A woman pushing a cart full of electronics actually moved his arm with her foot to create more space to pass. Not one person stopped to help. For nearly 4 minutes, Vance lay on the floor. Store cameras recorded at least 17 people who clearly saw him but continued shopping. His breathing became labored. His lips turned blue. The small pool of blood from his forehead spread slowly across the floor. Finally, a nurse who had come to the store after her hospital shift spotted Vance. She immediately dropped her items and began CPR. She called for help, but her voice was initially drowned out by announcements of flash sales. Eventually, other shoppers noticed and cleared space around him. Paramedics arrived 7 minutes after his collapse. They found Vance in full cardiac arrest. His heart had stopped beating 2 minutes earlier. Despite using a defibrillator and administering emergency medications, they could not restart it. As shoppers continued to stream past with carts full of discounted items, Walter Vance was pronounced dead at 1:45 a.m., surrounded by strangers focused on savings rather than a man's final moments. The fatigue incident.
Damn. Oh. Oh. I. That's. She's. Damn. Okay. Spacious ass car though. Like, probably because they're stick people. But that's crazy, bro. People were just walking around him, bro, as he's collapsed on the ground, just fucking dying and shit, bro. That's wild, bro. Like, some lady pushed his arm out of the way so they could get through with a fucking cart.
On November 23, 2012, Arvin Tandil, a 41-year-old software engineer, loaded his family into their Honda Odyssey minivan after an all-night shopping trip in San Bruno, California. It was 7:45 a.m. Tandil had been awake for over 20 hours, having worked a full day before heading directly to the stores for Black Friday deals. In the van were his wife, his mother, and his 4 daughters. The back of the vehicle was packed with bags containing electronics, toys, and household items purchased at steep discounts. The family had saved over $1,200 on their purchases. Tandil's
Damn.
eyes burned with fatigue as he pulled onto Highway 101 northbound. His wife, sitting in the passenger seat, had fallen asleep almost immediately. The children, too, were quiet in the back, exhausted from the overnight expedition. Traffic was light, and Tandil set the cruise control to 65 miles per hour. Near the 3rd Avenue exit, witnesses reported seeing the minivan suddenly drift to the right without braking. Highway Patrol investigators would later determine that Tandil had momentarily fallen asleep at the wheel. The van struck the guardrail at full speed, then violently careened back across 3 lanes of traffic. The impact deployed the front airbags, but the force of the second collision, when the van struck the concrete center divider, was catastrophic. The vehicle rolled 3 times before coming to rest on its roof. Glass and metal scattered across all lanes of the highway. Inside the crumpled vehicle, the scene was horrific. Cheadle had been partially ejected through the window. The impact had severed her spinal cord at the neck. She died instantly. Nisha, seated directly behind her father, suffered massive head trauma when the roof collapsed. She remained alive but unconscious, blood pooling around her still-fastened seatbelt. First responders worked frantically to extract the family. Tandil, dazed but conscious, kept repeating, "My children, my children." He watched helplessly as paramedics performed CPR on Nisha in the middle of the highway. Her small body jerked with each compression, but her brain had already been deprived of oxygen for too long. At 8:32 a.m., paramedics ceased resuscitation efforts. Both girls were declared dead at the scene, victims of their father's fatigue after a night of pursuing bargains. Nordstrom employee.
Damn, yo. Dude, getting in a car crash is actually like one of my biggest fucking fears. Yo. Damn. Fuck. But yeah, like I'm so scared to get in a car crash, bro, because I can't drive yet, right? I don't got my license. I don't know how to drive. I got a dirt bike though. It's electric. That's just fun as fuck. Anyways, yeah, but I can't drive. So like I got no control over that car if it gets in a car crash, and that shit's just like terrifying, bro. Because car crashes really can be fucking bad. Like you don't even gotta be going that fast. It could still just be bad, you know?
On November 28, 2014, the Nordstrom store on North Michigan Avenue in Chicago bustled with Black Friday shoppers. Holiday music played softly through speakers as customers browsed discounted luxury goods. Nadia Izaldine, a 22-year-old seasonal employee, stood behind the cosmetics counter on the 2nd floor. The University of Chicago law student had taken the temporary position to help pay for her education. It was 8:30 p.m., and Izaldine had been on her feet since the store opened at 8 a.m. She had requested the day off. It was her birthday, but management had denied the request due to the holiday rush. She had less than 30 minutes remaining in her 12-hour shift. Store security cameras captured Marcus D., 31, entering the building at 8:26 p.m. He walked directly to the escalator, bypassing the holiday displays. D was Izaldine's ex-boyfriend. Their relationship had ended nearly a year earlier. Court records would later reveal that Izaldine's family had tried to obtain a protective order against D, citing months of physical and emotional abuse. Dee approached the cosmetics counter casually, hands in the pockets of his coat. Witnesses reported that Izaldine's expression changed instantly when she saw him. She took a step back. A coworker later stated that Izaldine had whispered, "He's here." Dee reached the counter and spoke briefly to Izaldine. The security footage has no audio, but his lips moved for only 8 seconds. Then, without warning, he pulled a .45 caliber handgun from his...
Can we just appreciate the fact that he used a banana as like the gun, bro? That's just fire in my opinion.
Shoppers nearby noticed the weapon and began to scream. Several dropped to the floor. Izaldine tried to duck behind the counter, but Dee leaned over the glass display case and fired a single shot. The bullet struck her in the head. She collapsed immediately, falling backward against a shelf of perfume bottles. They shattered around her body, the expensive fragrances mixing with her blood on the polished floor. Dee then turned the gun on himself, placing the barrel under his chin and pulling the trigger. The bullet traveled upward through his brain.
Oh my fuck, bro. Bro. I don't know if I can really laugh at that. Can I laugh at that, bro? I don't know if that's okay. That'd kind of be fucked up, bro. But at the same time, just appreciate the editing, bro. Like, the banana it peeled, the banana went, like...
He died instantly,
I fucks with
his body slumping forward onto the counter. Nadia Izaldine, still breathing but unresponsive, was rushed to Northwestern Memorial Hospital. She remained on life support for nearly 24 hours before being pronounced dead at 3:43 p.m. on November 29th.
Damn.
Delivery driver, death by exhaustion.
That's fucked up, yo.
On November 25th, 2022,
I don't really
Michael
got nothing
Harrington,
else to
a
say.
49-year-old delivery driver for a major courier service, began his shift at 4 a.m. in London, UK. The Black Friday surge had pushed package volumes to unprecedented levels. His delivery van contained 342 parcels, nearly double his usual load. Each one represented a discounted purchase made during the shopping event. Harrington had been working 14-hour shifts for 6 consecutive days. Company records would later show he had delivered over 1,800 packages that week alone. The Black Friday rush had eliminated any chance for adequate rest. His supervisor had texted him repeatedly about meeting metrics and clearing backlogs. At 7:30 a.m., Harrington delivered his first package of the day. The customer noted that he seemed unusually pale and was sweating despite the cold November morning. By noon, he had delivered 147 parcels. His tracking device showed no break periods. The van's GPS recorded brief stops lasting only seconds as he ran packages to doorsteps. At 3:15 p.m., Harrington called his wife. The 4-minute conversation, later recovered from phone records, revealed his exhaustion. "I can't feel my legs anymore," he told her. "My chest feels tight." She urged him to return to the depot, but he responded that he still had 118 deliveries remaining and couldn't afford to lose the job. Fellow drivers spotted Harrington's van at 4:23 p.m., parked half on the curb on Blackheath Road. The hazard lights were flashing. Inside, Harrington was slumped over the steering wheel. A package sat on his lap, the delivery label already scanned. The first responder, an off-duty nurse, found him unresponsive. His skin was cold, his lips blue. She immediately began CPR, continuing for 8 minutes until an ambulance arrived. Paramedics used a defibrillator 3 times but detected no cardiac response. The medical examiner would later determine that Harrington had suffered a massive heart attack. His coronary arteries showed significant blockage, a condition exacerbated by stress and sleep deprivation. Toxicology reports revealed excessive levels of caffeine in his system, equivalent to consuming 20 energy drinks. At 5:47 p.m., thousands of shoppers continued to place online orders for next-day delivery. Michael Harrington was pronounced dead, still wearing his uniform and surrounded by packages that would never reach their destinations. Parking spot. Confrontation.
I've actually never managed to get next-day delivery. I've always tried to check for it, but they never fucking have next-day delivery when I'm trying to order some shit, bro. Like, I would love next-day delivery. That would be great. But no.
On November 28, 2013, the Walmart parking lot in Tazewell, Virginia, was filled beyond capacity. Shoppers had been arriving since 4 a.m. for the 6 a.m. doorbuster deals. Among them was Christopher Jackson, a 35-year-old coal miner and father of 3, circling the rows in his pickup truck, searching for a space. At 5:47 a.m., Jackson spotted an empty parking spot near the store entrance. as he began to turn into it. A silver Honda driven by Ronnie Sharp, 61, attempted to claim the same space from the opposite direction. Both vehicles stopped, headlights illuminating each other. For 13 seconds, neither driver moved. Security camera footage showed Jackson exiting his vehicle first. He gestured at the parking space, pointing to indicate he had arrived first. Sharp emerged from his Honda, visibly agitated. At 5:48 a.m., the two men stood face to face in the empty parking space, surrounded by rows of cars filled with witnesses. Words were exchanged. A witness in a nearby vehicle later reported hearing Sharp say, "I've been waiting for a spot for 20 minutes. Jackson responded, "I was here first." The argument escalated quickly. Sharp returned to his vehicle and retrieved something from the glove compartment. When Sharp turned around, he was holding a folding knife with a 3-inch blade. Jackson backed away, hands raised. Sharp advanced, slashing downward. The knife caught Jackson's left forearm, cutting through his jacket and slicing deeply into the muscle. Blood immediately soaked his sleeve. Jackson retreated to his truck, pressing his right hand against the wound. Sharp followed, still brandishing the knife. Instead of driving away, Jackson reached behind the seat of his pickup and pulled out an unloaded .30-30 Winchester rifle. Witnesses described the scene as surreal. Two men confronting each other with weapons at dawn in a Walmart parking lot, all over a parking space 20 feet from the entrance. Jackson pointed the unloaded rifle at Sharp, who froze momentarily before lunging forward with the knife. The second slash caught Jackson across the neck, severing his carotid artery. Blood spurted in a high arc, spattering across 3 parked cars. Jackson fired the unloaded rifle, producing only a metallic click. He collapsed against his truck, rifle clattering to the asphalt. Sharp stood motionless, knife in hand, as Jackson bled out in seconds. Store security reached the scene at 5:52 a.m. By then, Christopher Jackson had lost over 2 liters of blood. Paramedics attempted to close the wound, but the arterial damage was catastrophic. At 6:17 a.m., as shoppers streamed past the cordoned-off crime scene heading for discounted electronics, Jackson was pronounced dead. Blunt force. On November 25th, 2011, the Macy's department store in San Leandro, California had been open since midnight. By 4:30 a.m., most of the doorbusters were gone, but shoppers continued to stream through the exits with bags in hand. Among them was Thomas Henderson, 32, a warehouse supervisor who had purchased several discounted items for his children's Christmas presents. Henderson walked across the parking lot with his wife and 2 friends. They carried shopping bags containing a Nintendo game system, children's clothing, and a deeply discounted laptop. The group laughed as they discussed their successful shopping trip, unaware they were being watched. Security footage later showed...
Yo, I'm finna rewind. I'm gonna be honest, I kinda zoned out. Oh, no, never mind. I know what happened.
On November 25th, 2011, the Macy's department store in San Leandro, California had been open since midnight. By 4:30 a.m., most of the doorbusters were gone, but shoppers continued to stream through the exits with bags in hand. Among them was Thomas Henderson, 32, a warehouse supervisor who had purchased several discounted items for his children's Christmas presents. Henderson walked across the parking lot with his wife and 2 friends. They carried shopping bags containing a Nintendo game system, children's clothing, and a deeply discounted laptop. The group laughed as they discussed their successful shopping trip, unaware they were being watched. Security footage later showed 4 men following them through the dimly lit parking lot. At 4:34 a.m., as Henderson approached his car, the men surrounded him. One of them, later identified as Robert Andrews, 26, demanded Henderson hand over his purchases. Henderson refused, clutching the shopping bags tighter. Andrews pushed Henderson against the car. Henderson's wife screamed, attracting the attention of nearby shoppers. One of Henderson's friends attempted to intervene but was shoved to the ground by another attacker. The confrontation escalated in seconds. Andrews threw the first punch, striking Henderson in the face. Henderson dropped his bags and raised his hands defensively. The other 3 attackers joined in, punches landing on Henderson's head, chest, and back. He fell to the ground, curling into a protective position. What happened next was captured in horrifying detail by the parking lot security camera. Andrews picked up a metal tire iron that had fallen from Henderson's open trunk. He raised it high above his head and brought it down with full force. The metal bar struck Henderson's temple, fracturing his skull with an audible crack. The attackers grabbed the shopping bags and fled, leaving Henderson motionless on the asphalt. His wife knelt beside him, screaming for help. Blood pooled around his head, reflecting the colorful holiday lights strung across the storefront. Paramedics arrived 7 minutes later. Henderson had no pulse. Despite emergency cranial decompression performed in the parking lot, the brain hemorrhage was too severe. The pressure inside his skull had reached fatal levels within minutes of the blow. At 5:22 a.m., as the sun began to rise on the post-Thanksgiving shopping day, Thomas Henderson was pronounced dead. The items stolen from him, gifts intended for his children's Christmas morning, were valued at a total of $429.87 after Black Friday discounts. Toys R Us double.
Yeah, bro, that's fucked. just over some fucking
shooting.
Black
On
Friday
November
deals, bro.
28, 2008, the Palm Desert Toys R Us in California was packed with holiday shoppers. Children ran excitedly between aisles while parents hunted for deals. The store's bright fluorescent lights and cheerful holiday music created a festive atmosphere that masked the tension building in the electronics section. Alejandro Moreno, 39, stood with his wife near a display of video games. He was a construction worker, father of 4, with no criminal record. 3 aisles over, Juan Meza, 28, browsed with his girlfriend. Meza had previous run-ins with the law, including a weapons charge that had been dismissed the previous year. At approximately 11:36 a.m., the women began arguing. Store security footage later showed them standing face-to-face, gesturing angrily. Witnesses reported the dispute was about one woman bumping into the other with a shopping cart. What began as a minor incident quickly escalated as both men approached. Words were exchanged. Moreno stepped forward. Meza pulled his shirt up, revealing a handgun tucked into his waistband. Without hesitation, Moreno reached for his own weapon, concealed in an ankle holster. Both men drew their guns simultaneously, as shoppers began to scream and flee. The first shot came from Meza's .45 caliber pistol. The bullet struck Moreno in the chest, puncturing his right lung. Moreno returned fire immediately, squeezing off 2 shots from his 9mm. One round missed, shattering a display case. The other hit Meza in the abdomen, tearing through his liver. Both men remained standing. Meza fired again, his hand shaking. The bullet grazed Moreno's neck before lodging in a ceiling tile. Moreno, bleeding heavily, steadied his weapon with both hands and fired a final shot. It struck Meza directly in the heart. Meza collapsed first, falling backward into a stack of boxed toys. Moreno took 3 steps, then dropped to his knees. Children were screaming. Parents covered their eyes. The store's security alarm began to wail. Blood pooled on the linoleum floor, mixing with scattered sale flyers. By the time police arrived 4 minutes later, both men were dead, their bodies just 20 feet apart in a store meant for children's joy. If you want to see more videos like this, click the video on screen now and make sure to subscribe.
Christ, bro. Like, no, we're not getting into that. But holy fuck, yo, that's just wild, bro. A shootout started because 2 women bumped into each other at a fucking store. That is just some wild shit. That is just like some petty ass shit, bro. Neither of them men deserved life at that point. I mean, like, I shouldn't say that. That's not really what I meant. But like, fuck, that's just dumb as hell. Yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna end the video now so that I can go play some games on stream or some shit.